is Aladdin from 2019. This is the film directed by Guy Ritchie, starring Will Smith, Mena Massoud, and Naomi Scott. The IMDb plot summary: Aladdin, a kind thief, woos Jasmine, the Princess of Agrabah, with the help of Genie. When Jafar, the Grand Vizier, tries to usurp the king, Jasmine, Aladdin, and Genie must stop him from succeeding. So this is a live action Disney remake of one of my favorite movies of all time, the original Disney animated Aladdin. I mean, I swear by that film. It's incredible. And I brought this movie in as a wild card because to me, this is a major misfire for Will Smith in this film. On paper, I remember when they announced this, I'm like, who's gonna play the genie? Robin Williams passed away, but even if Robin Williams is still alive, would they have used him? Would they want to go in a different direction? And then when they were like Will Smith, I'm like, oh, cool. This actually, I could see this actually really working. Like he could bring a
Mm-hmm.
different energy, something different, the unique, Big Willie style from the 90s. I could see this working. The rapping genie, everyone wants that. But man, did they not do that at all. And it's just like Will Smith didn't really know what he was doing. There was too much like ribbing on Robin's performance. Also felt a lot like The Rock in a lot of the way that he was presenting himself
Yeah.
in this movie. That just does not work at all. A couple sequences do where they use Will in the right way, but overall, like not only this movie am I not much of a fan of, I think just Will, I don't know whether it was him not being able to give him the freedom of doing something different or he just couldn't do anything with this, like creatively. He just was basically ribbing on a lot of what Robin did. But yeah, I wanted to bring this in as a way of explaining how the Will Smith energy and the Will Smith star persona does not always work, even if on paper you think it should. So, what are your thoughts on Aladdin 2019?
This is a masterpiece. No, just kidding.
Oh my God, I was gonna be like, what? You're like Rob Williams, who? I don't know who that guy is. Will Smith just nailed the
Who?
genie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had not watched this movie for obvious reasons and
Yeah.
then watched it for this. I was like, sure. And, was going and grumbling and whatever. And yeah, this movie just, I gave it a fair share, like one tries to do,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this movie just does not work. And we'll get into that. But yeah, you're right. Like on paper, especially after indulging ourselves in this Will Smith,
Yeah.
mini course that we've
Yeah.
done, I was like, yeah, this actually does make sense. If he were to just bring back his own charm machine, Will Smith energy, and just be a genie with that, this would work actually. And
Yeah.
all they had to do was that. Because the truth is, yeah, spoiler alert, like I would like to bring back the charming Will Smith energy back
hmm
as an older person. Bad
hmm
Boys 4 doesn't work for me, as we've
hmm
discussed, but this is a chance to do that, and they just couldn't capture it. And just the whole movie just doesn't work. The movie is just flat
Yeah.
and just boring. That's kind of what I felt throughout. And it's the wrong director in my mind, Guy Ritchie. Like, this is just not his sensibility. There are some action sequences and such, like when Aladdin is kind of running through and people are following him and he's
hmm
like fast on his feet. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I see some of Guy Ritchie in there. But other than that, like, this is a very sweet story. It has like so much humor in it and fun in it. And I don't associate, I mean, I guess I associate Guy Ritchie with like snarky fun, but not earnest fun. This movie has
Okay.
to be
Huh.
kind of earnest for what it is. It's about wonderful world and, kind of finding yourself and diamond in the rough. Like, this is a very earnest story, like most Disney movies are.
hmm
And it needs like a lighter, more heartwarming, humorous touch to it. And instead, it just ends up being this absolutely color blinding mess of a flat picture.
Yeah, like the Guy Ritchie thing, even on paper to me, does actually make sense. In that Aladdin is like a snarky character who's also from the streets. And Guy Ritchie's whole attitude is street
True.
toughs and like, okay, poor people trying to make a living and being criminals. And that's what Aladdin is. He's a poor guy just stealing stuff. So I'm like, okay, like again, on paper, I'm like, I can see that potentially work, but it definitely misfires. I mean, I think honestly, I put a lot of the blame for that on the casting of Aladdin. I thought that
Oh,
actor was
so bad.
absolutely atrocious. And I'll
So
never
bad.
forget I was at a party once before this movie came out and there was a guy there who was like, "Oh, I'm auditioning for Aladdin today." And like he did his audition for me because he was going to audition for this movie. And he was great. I'm like, "Oh my God, you're so good. Like, this is your break." And he didn't get it obviously because this guy did, but I think he is so bad. He is like a wet blanket, not interesting, not fun. And
That
the character of Aladdin is so, entertaining, and
right.
he needs to be fun, and you want to follow him, and he's cool and all this stuff. I think that to me is almost as big as of a misfire as the genie with Will Smith. You had to cast a better lead. This guy just absolutely sucks, and it drags the whole movie down because like I don't care to
Totally.
follow him. He's just not interesting. He's not
Yep.
charismatic. He doesn't have that it factor.
Yep. And the
Um,
girl is the same. She's maybe
yeah,
slightly better than
yeah.
him, but also pretty much the same. Jafar is an interesting character that
Mm,
they could have really played with, and that doesn't work either. The special effects are again in this time that we live in just don't work.
yeah,
And then I don't know, there's something about the overly colorful stuff that just feels, I don't know, it's just so on the nose and kind of even insulting in a way that, oh, just
mm,
because we are taking you to this sort of, Middle Eastern place, we're just going to make it really colorful, and it just looks fake.
yeah,
All of it, like even in the animated movie where Aladdin is in, where stuff is not great, and people are struggling and such, like it feels that way, there's charm in it, but it
yeah,
doesn't feel all dressed up. Like this looks like a backlot,
yeah.
with green screens on it basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this just reminds me of the power of just animation. For the Friend Like
Right.
Me sequence, which in the original movie is so amazing. Like just Ron Williams is on
Unbelievable.
fire, the animators are on fire. And in this, not only is Will Smith just he can't sing. He's a rapper. He's not a singer. He's never really sang before, and his voice is not that great as a singer. But this
Hmm.
sequence, it just feels so dead. And I was thinking like animation can do this in a way that live action just can't. It's just not meant for what this a sequence like this is works so much better, and especially hand-drawn animation in particular. I think
Hmm.
just really just a reminder of me of that. Though I will say the one sequence to me that did kind of, well, there's two parts that kind of worked for me. I did like the Prince Ali sequence. I don't know, for some reason Will Smith not being, he's not blue. He's not a CGI weird body head thing. Like that looked awful in the beginning.
Very
He
bad.
just kind of himself, and his little bit of his Will Smith attitude comes through there. And I thought that sequence was fun actually, and he does a better job singing that. And the colors and stuff make sense to me, and I think that works on its own. And I also liked, the end dance sequence because every movie should end with one, and this has one. I'm like, okay, here's some energy where you could tell like the cast is enjoying themselves and they feel a little looser. Which the whole movie I didn't feel that. It was felt more like staged and rehearsed and like fake, like you were saying. So those two things for me kind of work, even though again, like this whole movie is just like an incredible misfire and just such a weird. I still don't really understand why Will couldn't pull this off. Because on paper it just makes so much sense, but just
Yeah,
no good.
it's it's, I think it's the director and maybe even the studio, right?
Yeah.
There's just so much of baggage from the old movie in a good way that they just couldn't get out of that. And I mean, this whole enterprise of making these live action movies is sort of flawed to begin
True.
with. It's like
They
a cash
all.
grab
Yeah.
totally. So
Yeah.
none of them have really worked, barring a couple. I think the only one that I can think of worked is Cinderella,
Me too. Yeah, I agree.
which
That one's
Kenneth
great.
Branagh is good at doing this sort of stuff. And Blanchett is amazing. Like the movie has something on his mind. Like she's
Hmm.
not portraying a specific version of the stepmother or whatever. She's doing her own thing. She
Right.
interprets something about this character and made her empathetic in a way
Hmm.
while being evil,
Right.
versus here it's like, okay, I'm just going to follow the beats of the original and try to inject a little bit of myself. I don't think he understood the assignment or was not
Hmm.
allowed to understand. Who knows? It's just
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, maybe it is like you said, Disney just being like, this, we're remaking this animated, stick to the beats. You
Stick
can't
to the
deviate too
beats.
much around this, other than just like pointless backstories they have to give everyone in these movies. Like the genie has a romance now, and there's Aladdin, or sorry,
Oh,
Jasmine has like political intrigue with these other princes and these other, kingdoms. I'm like, I don't care. Just get on the
no.
magic carpet, fly around the world, and then battle Jafar at the end and have the genie be some wisecracks. Like, I don't need all this plot. But they couldn't deviate. I think if they had
Yeah.
given Guy Ritchie and especially Will Smith potentially like more creative freedom, be like reinterpret the genie like they did with Kate Blanchett and Lady Tremaine from the Cinderella live action remake, maybe it could have been better. But yeah, I had to bring this up as just like Will Smith not working, even though it should work, but it just
Super.
absolutely doesn't. So no recommend, but definitely see the original Aladdin if anyone hasn't seen that. The one of the best movies ever made,
One of the
just
best.
incredible. Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us.
Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.